and welcome to episode 14. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Tom Aspinall's next fight. That's something that's been on my mind. I think we should really dig our claws into that one. And then what else? We're going to be talking about Jon Jones's response to Tom Aspinall. Very, very interesting. That's something I really want to I also want to dig these damn claws into. We are going to be talking about where do we go for Leon Edwards? Does he deserve a rematch or not? I know what you guys are thinking, but you know, we'll talk about it. And last but not least, on this episode, we will try to talk about the UFC's financial decisions. Ooh, boy, quite a lot to go around on the MMA world this week. But I just like to stick to certain conversations. Guys, you know, listen, I can talk MMA news all day. I can spend an hour plus on just one subject matter. But I try to squeeze these things in as much as I can in the episodes. And you know, when you do it that way, with regards to the amount of stories I give out and the amount of times I do post long form videos, I find that it's just not everything I can talk about, but I will speak about the things that really plague my mind that I've heard in the news over the last couple of days. So, sorry, we're gonna have to stick with these 4 conversations. Again, welcome to this episode. Let us have a conversation. First on the dinner plate, breakfast plate, whatever time of the day, whatever part of the world you're at. First is first, let's talk about Tom Aspinall. Guys, I've been on a Tom Aspinall high for a while now. But I have officially kept a pack of Tom Aspinall branded blunts in the corner because, boy, Tom Aspinall has been so impressive. Listen, this isn't news. It's not new to anybody. Tom Aspinall is a phenomenal fighter, and I think we should start putting him in the pound for pound conversation. Not the GOAT conversation. He hasn't done anything remotely considering qualifications for GOAT status, either in the heavyweight division, GOAT status in the UK MMA, or GOAT status in MMA at all. He's still pretty early enough, even though he's mentioned recently that he's about 30 years old, and that means he's around the half point or second half of his career. I think Aspinall is still too young to be considered for GOAT status, and his achievements so far have not been enough to qualify him in that conversation. But it has definitely been, to me and my casual brain, it has definitely been very noteworthy to start to consider having Tom Aspinall in the GOAT, sorry, not the GOAT, in the, fuck it, Tom Aspinall in the, guys, I just had a fucking brain freeze. What the hell? I need to slow down on the smoke. So let's have Tom Aspinall in the pound for pound conversation. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Tom Aspinall is good standing up. His strikes are phenomenal. His movement is fantastic. Head movement, feet movement, hand movement. Tom Aspinall on the ground, supremely efficient. He's been training jiu-jitsu with his dad, I think, since he was, what, 4 or 5? So very good on the ground game. He actually took out Alexander Volkov with a Kimura. Who would have ever expected that, considering the size difference between him and Volkov? I would never have thought Tom Aspinall could have pulled that off so easily, and he did it easily too. Right, this is Volk we're talking about. Anybody who knows Alexander Volkov understands the size difference between Alexander Volkov and Tom Aspinall, and Aspinall took him out on the ground. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that Tom Aspinall's skill set can most certainly translate across weight classes. And you have a guy who moves like that in any weight class, that guy is a dangerous dude. And to think that Tom Aspinall is a heavyweight. I'm just saying, you heard it here first. Mr. TDC has proposed that Tom Aspinall's name needs to be thrown into the pound for pound conversation. No question. If we have to kick someone else out of the list, the pound for pound list right now, find someone to kick off. Put Tom Aspinall in that conversation. However, I've been thinking, guys, in the previous video I mentioned that I wasn't really happy with the fact that Tom Aspinall had to fight Curtis Blade at UFC 304 as the interim champion, because to me, I just believe he had nothing to gain and more so everything to lose. And the balance wasn't really much. What did Curtis Blades have to lose? What did Curtis Blades have at stake? Not really much. Curtis was on maybe a 1 or 2 fight win streak, if I recall. But Tom was not just on a 1 or 2 fight win streak. It was around the same kind of win streak, or maybe give or take 1 or 2 fights. But Tom had just won the interim heavyweight championship belt after taking a fight with Sergio Pavlovich on 2 weeks' notice. On 2 weeks' notice. How amazing is that? If anything, the UFC should have rewarded Tom Aspinall with a fight, a unification fight for the heavyweight title. But no, we already know what's going on with the whole Jon Jones and Stipe thing. And the UFC said, listen, bro, rather than waiting till whenever Jon Jones and Stipe sort out whatever issues they're having, why not take a fight with Curtis Blade? Considering you got an L in that match, it's a rematch, and you're both actually very good contenders, even though there was a clear interim champion. And Tom Aspinall said, you know what? Okay, let's do it. No risk, no reward. So his last 2 fights have been high risks for him. But he still took them and took out 2 of the division's best in quick succession. So fucking amazing. But that leaves us with a question. Where does Tom Aspinall go from here? Who does he fight? At the post-fight press conference for UFC 304, there was a reporter there who said, he was mentioning something about Tom Aspinall taking another fight prior to when Jon Jones and Stipe do actually fight. And in my mind, I'm like, who's asking such a dumb question? Like, can't you read the room and see the landscape of what the heavyweight division is right now with Tom Aspinall at the top? It makes 0 sense for him to fight anybody else other than the winner of Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. In fact, I'll take it a step further. I honestly believe that if Jon Jones or Stipe do not fight by November 2024, Madison Square Garden or Vegas, doesn't matter to me. If Stipe and Jon Jones do not fight, dare UFC strip Jon Jones of the belt. I'm sorry. Strip it. This division needs to move. You have a young, talented guy who's putting in more fights in that division, bringing some excitement to the division, himself and Jon Jones, if I'm being fair. But he's bringing excitement and he's bringing eyes back to that division. A division that literally is almost dying in terms of viewership. Nobody really cares these days about the title for the UFC's heavyweight division. I've mentioned that in previous videos. I'm tired of beating that horse. If Tom Aspinall, if Jon Jones and Stipe do not fight, you should reward Tom Aspinall with the belt. I don't even think he needs to fight for it. Just make Tom Aspinall the undisputed champion. Tell Stipe and Jon Jones to ride into the window, throw them back in the line, and let them fight contenders to earn that shot. Sounds crazy and bizarre, but at this point, Tom Aspinall has been so impressive that I don't see why we shouldn't make this argument for him. Why not? He says he wants to fight Jon Jones. That is his preference. But he would not also mind Stipe because he's not taking anything away from Stipe Miocic's achievements as the greatest heavyweight of all time in the UFC. But Tom Aspinall's preference would be Jon Jones. I don't mind that. I don't mind seeing that fight. I think initially I had my reservations, but with this performance that Tom just had at UFC 304, I mean, who can say no? Who can argue with the fact that Tom Aspinall needs to cement his legacy as one of the greatest to ever do it at heavyweight, or one of the greatest to ever do it from the UK? There's nothing wrong with that. I think that dude deserves that shot. Nobody else. Nobody should call out Tom Aspinall until after the Stipe and Jon Jones fight. And again, if anybody decides that either Stipe or Jon Jones decides that fight shouldn't happen between themselves, please cut them off. Like, I'm so sick of it. Get them moving, get them out of the front, get them off the front of the line, take them to the back of the bus, and let other people move on and let that division move. I like momentum in every division. And right now, the momentum at the very top of the UFC's heavyweight division is complete trash. Everybody knows this. It's not even a conversation anymore. It's just too glaring. Thank goodness for Jon Jones, who came in and sort of, put a little excitement at the top by beating Cyril Gane. What the heck is Cyril Gane, by the way? Dude got beat by Jon Jones and just completely vanished. I'll get back to him later. Anyway, so yeah, my position on Tom Aspinall is simple. Tom shouldn't take another fight. It's okay. Interim champ, I think he should do things outside of the Octagon to make some money between now and that time. Hopefully we get to see Stipe and Jon Jones in November, Madison Square Garden, and fingers crossed we will see the winner of that match next year. I'm hoping first quarter, maybe first 4 months. I'm talking before April next year, max. Let's get that over with. Let's know what direction we're going in. I think we're at that point. We need to get this over with immediately. It's not even a question, right? It could be Jon Jones. We don't know. But that being said, since I've called Jon Jones' name, let's transition into Jon Jones' response to to Tom Aspinall Jon Jones, so good at Twitter, very good online to respond. Whenever something happens, I think the fastest people to respond would be Jon Jones and Conor McGregor. Every time something happens online, the fastest guys to respond are Jon Jones and Conor. I think I've heard a lot of you say, even in my comment section and just across the internet, I've seen a lot of people saying that Jon Jones is avoiding avoiding Tom Aspinall. I've always argued that I do not think that that is the case. I still do not think that that is the case. However, what has changed for me is that I do think at this point, Jon Jones should fight Tom Aspinall. Because Tom Aspinall has earned it. He really has. Nobody is in a better position at this point to give Jon Jones a very big challenge of the younger generation in the heavyweight division. There's nobody. Who's positioned now? Nobody. It's just Tom Aspinall. And Jon Jones said something about supply made and demand granted. Some shit, guys. I'll put that up for you to see. This is what he said. Right? Essentially, that is his response to Tom Aspinall. I still don't think, again, like I said earlier, I still don't think that Jon Jones is afraid of Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones is probably one of the most competitive fighters out there. Can you imagine what will happen at the possibility that Jon Jones will beat Stipe and then take a shot, give Tom Aspinall a unification shot and win? Because there's always a possibility that Jon Jones can win Stipe Miocic. Why am I calling Stipe his name? God damn, you see, you guys have put Stipe and Jon Jones in my head so much that that's all I'm thinking about. Anyway, yeah, there's a possibility that Jon Jones could fight Tom Aspinall after he's fought Stipe or won Stipe. And there's a possibility that Jon Jones could actually win Tom Aspinall. Just imagine if Jon Jones does that and he decides to ride into the sunset. Legacy sealed. And I truly think that at this point, that might be his motivating factor. Or he could just take the easy way out. Fuck up Stipe and call it a day. Don't risk it, John. These are two options you could take. And I understand the competitive nature of the sport and the man that you are, Jon Jones. But if I was your legal advisor or your sports advisor, I'd say, yeah, you ain't got nothing to prove to nobody. Hit the road and leave. Look at Khabib. Look at Khabib. Khabib hit the 29-0 mark and left. Right? If ever there was a fight Khabib could have come back for, I would have also said Khabib should come back to fight GSP. GSP was very willing to fight Khabib. And Khabib versus GSP was Khabib's father's dream matchup for his son. But Khabib just said, you know what? I'm going to ride off into the sunset with my legacy intact. And we have nothing to question. We can only speculate, oh my God, Khabib is not the greatest, but Khabib will always be in the greatest of all time conversation based on his record. He was undefeated and he defended his belt multiple times against killers. Killers. Took all of them out effectively. And he's left. Jon Jones can do that as well. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. That's what I think he will That's what I recommend that he should do. But some part of me is still in there saying, yeah, you just might want to see one more Jon Jones fight, just for the sake of it and for the legacy part of the conversation. Oh, the possibilities that could happen. I don't know. We'll see. Based on Jon Jones's response to Tom Aspinall, it's looking like those competitive juices in him are boiling up. However, everything depends on what happens in November against Stipe. Jon Jones cannot be distracted or overlook Stipe Miocic. You just can't. I don't care how old Stipe is. I understand that Stipe hasn't won a fight. I believe he hasn't won a fight in maybe 3 years or 2 years since Francis Ngannou knocked him out. He hasn't even fought since then. He's coming off a loss and a long layoff. But he's come off losses and long layoffs before and won, regained his belt. So he also has something to prove, and that makes him very, very dangerous. Jon knows this. So I'd like to think that Jon will not make the mistake of overlooking Stipe. He's going to focus on Stipe for now. And some part of me is telling me he might actually finally fight Tom Aspinall. Or he can take my option and just fucking fade out into the sunset, legacy intact. TDC said it today. Whenever that happens in the near future, you guys need to come back to the comment section and see if this video aged very well. God, I hope it does. I hope everything I'm saying makes sense and will play out just the way that, I expect it to play out in this casual brain of mine. Anyway, transition. Yeah, so Welterweight Division, Belal Muhammad. We have a new champion in Belal Muhammad, who had a very dominant performance against Leon Edwards. Listen, Leon is not. No, I'm not a Leon fan. I've been saying it for the longest time. I'm happy momentum has happened in that division. But there are conversations now being had online and in certain quarters about a possible trilogy between Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad, because they are officially 1-1. I'm like, are they though? That first fight was a no decision because of an eye poke that Leon did. And then Leon dodged Belal for a long time. And then finally, when he couldn't dodge Belal anymore, he goes to fight Belal, and Belal literally ragdolled him. Imagine being ragdolled so badly by a guy that you dismissed for 3 years. We could have had this fight a long time ago. Belal still had to fight through so many people, even though the right thing for Leon to have done was to give him an immediate rematch. Let's be real. With what happened the first fight, Belal should have had a rematch. Leon Edwards should have immediately given Belal Muhammad a rematch. Or the moment he becomes a champion, he should have called out Belal Muhammad and says, hey Belal, how about we run that shit back? It's happened. Curtis Blade had a W against Tom Aspinall, but he was so happy to run it back with Tom Aspinall because he saw how that fight ended. Right? Another example would be Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, it wasn't even Chito who called Sean O'Malley for the rematch. It was Sean O'Malley who came back from that loss to Cheeto. That I personally don't believe that was a loss anymore, even though on paper it is. But Sean O'Malley comes back from that situation with Cheeto in the first fight, calls Cheeto out after he becomes the champion, and completely gets that W back in the most spectacular way. So it's been done. What stopped Leon Edwards from doing that? Like, just look at this from an honorable perspective, right? You fight a guy. No, let me rephrase that. Okay, so you are a fighter on a winning streak. You can't get opponents on your way to a title shot. A fight is offered to Belal Muhammad to fight you. On 2 weeks' notice, Belal takes the fight because you didn't have anybody to fight you. Belal takes the fight on 2 weeks' notice. When you guys meet and you try to fight, you poke his eye, thereby ending the fight prematurely, and you didn't think to ask him for a rematch, to grant him the same favor that he gave to you. And then after denying him for so many years, he finally works his way back to the Octagon, worked his way through a number of people, skilled people in the division, and gets in front of you in the Octagon, completely ragdolls you. I'm going to be saying that for a while. Ragdoll Leon Edwards. No amount of coach firing up speech or motivational speech on Leon's corner could get him. Yeah, the moment Belal dropped him on his head, planted him. The moment Belal planted Leon on his head twice, yeah, we knew that was a wrap. And then the guy finally wins you, gets the belt, he's not the new champion. You're talking about a rematch? How? Rematch to what? I am with Belal on this one. Leon Edwards does not deserve a rematch for many reasons. One, he wasn't honorable enough to get a rematch from Belal, but let's even just say that's a moral issue. Let's even talk about just based on skills and technique and professionalism. Based on the outcome of the fight at UFC 304, the main event, yeah, Leon Edwards does not deserve an immediate rematch. I can't even call Leon a dominant champion, even though he defended his belt multiple times. Who says Leon Edwards is a dominant or was a dominant champion? You gotta be smoking some really strong Tom Aspinall, right? You've gotta be really hard for you to say Leon was a dominant champion. He just wasn't. He wasn't deserving of all these things. I'm sorry. That's my personal opinion. You guys can stick it if you want, but that's my personal opinion. Okay, if you guys disagree with me, let me know. Do you really think, based on the performance at UFC 304 and the history that led to that fight, that Leon Edwards at this point in time deserves a rematch with Belal Muhammad? Immediate rematch. Now, he deserves a rematch, but certainly not an immediate rematch. You need to work the ropes, Leon. I'm sorry. Not a fan of Belal, but I'm with Belal on this one. Not a fan of you either. It's a boring card that you guys, a boring fight, boring card that you guys give us. Okay, I take that back. It's not you guys, it's the UFC. UFC, yeah, you guys did bad on this one. Yeah, that London, the Manchester card, UFC 304, that was some bollocks. I smelt a lot of shite on that one. That was just a terrible, terrible card. Terrible card. And on that note, I am moving on to the main topic of this video, which is why you guys tuned in. UFC's financial decisions. So recently, Uncle Dana at a press conference declared that he will no longer create higher fight bonus incentives for the fighters because he has realized that the incentives do not make any difference. I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but that's essentially what Dana has said. Of course, we have people out there who are disagreeing with him. And my question to those people is, why the hell are you disagreeing with Uncle Dana on this one? Let's keep it real, guys. Bring it in, take it easy, hold your horses. I'm gonna try to explain to you why you must be crazy to disagree with Dana on that one. Let's think about it. The average UFC bonus is what? 50K. 50 G's, baby, right? That's the average UFC bonus. At UFC 300, during the press conference, the fighters requested for an increase in the bonus because it was a special event. And of course, that was going to be some extra motivation for them. And they asked for 300K in bonus money. And Dana White said, okay. He was feeling very good. Says, okay. We go in there and we have a super spectacular fight card. One of the most exciting fight cards in a very long time. And we had, because of that incentive, we had the best or the greatest knockout in UFC history in Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. Everybody's feeling good and everybody's happy. The next pay-per-view, I believe it was Pantoja's pay-per-view. You know how I felt about that one, so I'm not saying anything about that one. But then we come to UFC 303, I believe it was. And at UFC 303, the fighters also, I believe they asked for an increase in the bonus fees again. And Dana agreed to that at the press conference. But there was no excitement in the fights, or not as much excitement in that fight card as much as there was in UFC 300. There was just none, there was no good, nothing exciting. Right? The guys didn't really deliver. Okay. UFC 304. Dana White at the press conference, Bobby Green says, Uncle Dana, can we make it 100K in bonuses? Dana White says, oh, here we go again. But he still agrees to it. And after agreeing to 100K in bonuses, you have a fight card that had 7 straight decision wins. 7. If that doesn't make you pissed off, I don't know what does. I always talk about this $85 plus taxes that I'm paying to watch every pay-per-view, and I always say, when I pay to watch a pay-per-view, I want fireworks. I'm a casual. I want fireworks. I want to know that my money was worth it. I want to know that I had a good time watching these fights, right? And if 100K in bonus incentives is going to do that, I'm with Dana on that one. But then you make me pay 85 plus taxes for a pay-per-view in Manchester, and it's a snooze fest. And by the way, I already predicted it was going to be a snooze fest. I said this card was one of the weaker cards, right? The USA has put on in the entire year of 2024 so far. But now you guys get it? Do you guys see how going into a fight card with those kinds of high incentives and then coming out with 7 straight decision wins in a row. You see how that can make Dana White pissed off? But it most certainly made me pissed off. We want to see knockouts. We want to see finishes, and we want to see TKOs. If we don't see knockouts, finishes, TKOs, submissions, right? If we don't see all that, guess what we want to see next? We want to see barn burners. We want to see wars. Wars. Right? I'll give you an example of a war. Israel Adesanya versus Kevin Gastelum of April 2019. I always use that as an example of a barn burner. Those guys went in. That's easy's toughest fight till today. I can watch that fight all day. I love it. I completely love that fight. It didn't end in a finish. But boy, did we enjoy that fight. Just another barn burner another one that happened until another barn burner I can name right now. Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang Weili. Arguably the greatest female MMA match of all time. I think he won Fight of the Year that year. I'm not sure. I think so. Gonna have to check that. Barn burner. Exciting. They put it all on the line, but there wasn't a finish. Did we complain because there wasn't a finish? No. So we like barn burners too. Tell me what was a barn burner at UFC 304. And now when you think about it, what this means is that Dana White has made 3 pay-per-view events with increased bonuses and only 1 delivered, leaving 2 in the doldrums. What does that tell you? That's 2 in 1. If you're Dana and the whole idea of increasing the bonus is to give people more exciting fights, then why are you going to do it if it makes no difference? Because it really doesn't make any difference. Right? It makes no difference. So do you blame Dana? Right? And a lot of people said the reason why this happened is because the UFC is broke. UFC is broke after giving so many bonuses in the last couple of months. Some of you guys just, I mean, I understand what we are casuals, but sometimes you guys say some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. For anybody to think the UFC is broke and is the reason why Dana doesn't want to pay bonuses, you've got to be smoking, you got to be, and the really bad ones too, not the good shit. That doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The same set of people are going to argue that the UFC doesn't make much money. That is why the UFC doesn't pay its fighters very well. Guys, have any of you ever thought about, speaking of fighter pay, have any of you ever thought about running a business, right? And having independent contractors or having employees? Has anybody ever done the math to wonder how much the UFC actually sells, how many pay-per-views it sells, how much the pay-per-views are, the operating costs and capital expenditure to set up these fights, marketing and advertising and promotions? Anybody ever looked into that? Did I mention taxes? Exactly. Has anybody ever looked into these things I've mentioned and just wonder really how much does the UFC really make? Right? Don't get it twisted. The UFC makes a lot of money. But the idea that fighters should get more money even when they are not exciting fighters, it's stupid. I think the people who bring eyes to the sport should get the money because they bring eyes, they bring value. This is an argument as old as time, and you guys have seen it. Movie studios, for instance. There's a reason why they're going to pay Arnold Schwarzenegger $25 million back in the day. There's a reason why they'll pay Sly Stallone $25 million back in the day per movie. Will Smith. That name. All right, I'll focus. Just so you guys know, I'm a bit of a cinephile too, right? But anyway, when Hollywood Will was big, there's a reason why they paid him that amount of money. Tom Cruise. These people are paid the big bucks because they bring the big butts to the seats. You see what I'm saying? The same principle applies to fighters. If you are a fighter that brings eyes, if you're a fighter that is loud enough, you have a very heavy social media presence, you're good at promotion, you're good at the trash talking, yeah! You make numbers, you move the needle. Why will the UFC not pay you money? They will pay. But if you're just somebody on the bottom of the barrel, not really doing much, and you're trying to, bandwagon along, boring fights, or not bringing as much eyes, that doesn't even make any sense. You're not helping the cause. It's worth thinking about, and I think you guys give the UFC a lot of shit a bit too much. Right? With this whole fighter pay thing and this whole bonuses things. We need to slow down. It's a business at the end of the day. The shareholders invest money and they need some money to come back. How are you going to get that money back if you keep giving out bonuses, exorbitant bonuses, to people who are undeserving? How? You're not going to make that money back. You know what I'm saying? So, my personal opinion is this. Certain people deserve a certain amount of money. Certain people on the roster do not. Certain fighters do not deserve that kind of money. They can earn that kind of money. The exposure the UFC gives you. In 2024, there's so many avenues to make money outside of the UFC Octagon. You just need the exposure. And everybody who signs with the UFC gets that exposure. And the ball is entirely in your hands. You're going to come there and scratch, sniff your way to fame? Or do you want to come there and do spectacular highlights, like Joaquin Phoenix and the likes? Go viral. Let people know who you are. The ball is entirely in your court. UFC just gives you a platform for you to bounce off. I know some of you disagree with this, and it's okay. We can agree to disagree. You might say, oh, the dumb Mr. TDC, the dumb casual, has put out another dumbass position, and that's okay. But you can't tell me it's not a valid one too. It's a valid position. It really is. So, Uncle Dana, message to you. Keep doing what you're doing. I support you on this one. However, as you said, in the future, if people do put on spectacular fights, even without being incentivized, if they put out really spectacular fights, reward them. 50K, 100K. When other people see you rewarding those who have made great effort, it's going to motivate them to step up in their next fight. And I think that's the best formula we can work with at this point in time. Not all these freebie bonuses. I'm sorry. I respect fighters, by the way. But I also understand that the road to fame and superstardom is a journey. You don't go from point A to point Z. You climb. It's a hard journey, but you climb until you get to the top that Michael Chandler has never been. Got it. Anyway, so on that note, my good people, I'm gonna have to leave it here for today on this episode while we wait for other news to happen in the MMA world this week, so that I can get on my ass and give you another episode before, in the next coming days, right? If you've been here this long, I thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. We're slowly growing in subscription. I really appreciate it. I didn't think we'd be where we are right now. I understand this journey is going to be slow and we still have a lot to do on this channel. But it's encouraging to see that people engage. And not just people engage, people are subscribing, so people are watching, and I really like it. But your role, once again, to like these videos, share these videos, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification button to get all my videos and shorts. And then more importantly, I would always encourage you guys to engage in the comment section. I want to hear your thoughts. This is not a monologue, this is a conversation. I want to hear what you guys have to say, good or bad. With that, I'll see you guys on the next one, and I'm out of here.